All right, so now we're going to find the exact values given some of these reference angles, and these come from the unit circle, but we can also recreate them if we know where they are in the coordinate plane. So if I look at 120 degrees, 120 degrees, this is 180, and this is 90. 120 degrees is about here, so that's this angle right here is 120, which means that the reference angle is 60 degrees, because if I do 180 minus 120, we're using a 60-degree reference angle. The difference is my triangle is in quadrant 2, which means that all students take calculus. That means if I'm in quadrant 2, sine is positive, cosine is negative, tangent is negative, cosecant is positive, secant is negative, and cotangent is negative. Okay. Since we're using a 60-degree reference angle, we're going to use a 60-degree triangle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate a 30, 60, 90 triangle of the unit circle, which means the radius is 1. Here's my 60-degree angle. Here's my 90. Here's my 30. So if the hypotenuse is 1, the short side is 1/2, and the long side is the square root, is the square root 3 over 2. Okay, so if I'm looking at the sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse, so that is the positive square root 3 over 2. If I'm looking at the cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is a 1/2, but negative, because it's cosine. Tangent is the opposite over adjacent. So the opposite over adjacent is square root 3 over 2 divided by 1/2, which is just equal to the square root 3 over 2 times 2 over 1, which is the square root of 3. So that's negative root 3. The cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so that's 2 over the square root of 3, but I have to rationalize it. So we get 2 root 3 over 3, positive. The secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so that's negative 2 over 1, which is equal to negative 2. The cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. So if I get that tangent is negative root 3, then the cotangent is negative 1 over root 3. And if I rationalize, I'm going to get negative root 3 over 3. Okay. 225. So there's, sorry, I should box that one. 225. 225, if we're looking at the reference angle, 220, here's 180, and here's 270. So we're going to get here. If I take my 225 minus my 180, I get a 45-degree reference angle. So I'm using this 45, 45, 90. And so if I let the radius be 1, then that means that this is the square root of 2 over 2, and the other side is the square root 2 over 2. I'm in quadrant 3, so that means if I use my all students take calculus, tangent is positive in quadrant 3, so everything else is negative. Negative, negative, positive, negative, negative, positive. So if I draw in my triangle, my reference angle is a 45. So if I do my opposite over hypotenuse for sine, I get negative root 2. Whoa, what happened there? Undo. Negative root 2 over 2. Cosine is the same thing. My tangent, if I divide root 2 over 2 by root 2 over 2, I just get a positive 1. My cosecant is the reciprocal. So I'm going to take negative 2 over root 2, but if I rationalize it, then I get 2 over 2 with a root 2, so I just get root 2, but it is negative. Secant is going to be the same thing. And then my cotangent is also 1, because if I reciprocate 1, I get 1. 210. So now if I'm drawing my reference angle, I'm again in quadrant 3. 210 this time. If I do 210 minus 180, I get a 30-degree reference angle. So I'm going to use the same 30, 60, 90 triangle, only this time I'm referring to 30. Signs, because I'm in quadrant 3, tangent is positive, so negative, negative, positive, negative, negative, positive. The 30-degree, all that happens is I actually just flip. Okay, so sine and cosine are going to flip places. So this is going to be a 1/2, and this is going to be a square root 3 over 2, because I'm just changing the reference angle in the same triangle. That also means that my cosecant and my secant are going to flip. So this is a -2. Oops. And then my cosecant is going to be 2 root 3 over 3. For my tangent and cotangent, those are going to flip places. So since I originally had root 3 over 2 over 1/2, now I have 1/2 over root 3 over 2. I'm just going to take the opposite. So this was a square root 3 over 3. I got that from up in this corner. And then my tangent was negative root 3, so now it's going to be a positive root 3. And the signs I'm ignoring because we're in quadrant 3 for 210, whereas when I was at 120 degrees, I was in quadrant 2, so it made a difference. Okay? All right. Then for my 330 degree, let's find where I am. So I am all the way in quadrant 3, because this is 270 and this is 360. If I do my 360 minus 330, I am at a 30-degree reference angle. So it's the same reference angle as here. The only thing that's going to change is my signs. This is C, cosine is positive, and it's reciprocal. So this one is positive, and secant is positive, and everything else is negative. And then because it's the same reference angle, all I'm going to do is copy the exact answers. Oops, I skipped that one. From directly above it because it's the same reference angle. Okay, and there are the exact values for the given angles.